Hey everybody, can you hear me and see me okay? Just, you know the drill. Give me a thumbs up or a yes or anything just so that I know you're picking up what I'm putting down. Anybody? Mary, I'm guessing that means yes. You said yay. Excellent. Okay, John, yes. Okay, so first things first, I want to answer a couple of questions. Very good. Thanks, guys. I'm going to answer a couple of questions that y'all were asking. The first was John's. John says he's been doing a lot of earth invocations lately and beginning to feel lethargic and sedentary. What would you recommend for more energy slash better balance that still maintains a focus on the earth element? You know, this can be one of the things when you're working with uh, any of the planetary energies or any of the elements. There can be, here's the thing, I don't, depends on how you want to look at it. Some people say that it can create an imbalance of sorts, you know, like John saying, like he feels lethargic and slow and sedentary, that sort of thing. That would correspond with like an imbalance of earth. Or, you know, for example, if you're working with fire, some people say that you know, they may find, for example, that they start losing their temper more easily or more often. Or if somebody's working with air, they may, you know, suddenly get caught up in their own thoughts, you know, constantly second guessing themselves, all that sort of thing. Some people would call that an imbalance of some sort, like you have more than of one energy than the other. However, I've and that's the way I viewed it for a long time. I viewed that as like an imbalance of sorts that needed to be corrected. However, some people instead say that it's not necessarily an imbalance. It's more that when you're working on that element, it brings things within you to light that perhaps you didn't know were there already and that you need to work on in some way. Whichever way you're looking at it, you know, this is one of those things that really, um, you know, so much of magic is still trial and error because it's going to work differently for different people. So, however you end up looking at it, which side of the coin you end up on, ultimately is going to be something very personal to you. But what I would say about like kind of getting through that or past that or remedying that is what I would do personally is probably pull back on doing as much earth invoking. And what I would do instead is start to invoke, you know, part of the curriculum. Also, like you remember in the magnum opus curriculum, part of it was to invoke, and I can't remember off the top of my head how many times, like was it once a week or a couple of times a month or however many times it was, but part of the curriculum also said to invoke um, the supreme invoking ritual, the pentagram. What I would do is switch over and start, instead of just invoking earth, I would start doing uh, the entire supreme invoking pentagram the way you do it when you're invoking all four elements, you know, where you've got 8 pentagrams, two in each direction, and you've got Leo and Taurus and, you know, the Aquarius, all the other signs. I would start doing it that way, because what you're doing then is just drawing more balanced energy into yourself, which usually fixes the situation, at least in my own experience. Same way with like planetary stuff. And this is what we're going to start getting into next in the lower pledge levels. I've been doing that series of like the fundamentals of magic, or like the beginning lessons of high magic, focusing on all the daily rituals, like lesser pentagram, lesser hexagram, rose cross, middle pillar, all that sort of stuff. Uh, what I'm doing in that series is kind of giving everyone the stuff the way that I learned it, like the order that I learned it in and the order that I did it in. Like those 4 daily rituals, or those daily rituals, I did those every single day, multiple times a day for, I would say, at least 2 years before I started doing planetary work, the greater hexagram stuff. Just because, one, I was trying to get them right. For a long time, I didn't have anybody talking to me about this stuff. I didn't have anybody telling me anything about it or breaking any of this stuff down for me. So for me, it was entirely trial and error. And I was just trying to figure out what the hell I was doing while I was doing it. So I struggled along trying to figure it out and making sure that I was doing it right. And I knew I was doing it right whenever I started getting effects from it. That's one of the things that people wrestle with in the beginning of magic, is like, is this really working? Is it really doing anything? Well, the way you tell that, it's like Crowley said, let success be thy proof. If you're successful at it, if you're doing it correctly, you're going to start experiencing changes in yourself. Those changes can be anything from, in the early days, like you start to actually perceive energy. You start to realize, oh my God, I'm not just waving my hands around in the air and saying crazy stuff. Like I'm starting to see there's something there. Like whenever I'm breathing in this energy and using this energy to draw things, like when my eyes are closed, I can feel or see, or maybe both, that it's there. I don't know if y'all can hear that or not. The entire building's vibrating from a car going by with the radio on. So but I did that for probably 2 straight years, until I was doing them, forward, backwards, inside out. I understood them. I could tell they were doing something. And then I started going into the planetary work, the greater hexagram rituals. You can run into the same problem that John is talking about, if you choose to look at it that way, like an imbalance, or the other way of looking at it is that it's not necessarily so much a problem as an opportunity and a moment of enlightenment. What I mean by that is, a moment of enlightenment is you're seeing parts of yourself that may be imbalanced already, and this is just kind of exacerbating them in some way, or bringing aspects of yourself to the surface that you haven't really paid attention to, but that you need to work on in some sort of way. And kind of highlighting for you, like where your trouble spots are. What was my point with this? Oh, the same thing can happen with the planetary stuff. Like what you just described about being lethargic and sedentary, that can also be one of the kind of symptoms, I guess you would say, of doing a lot of moon invocations. That, or it could be becoming like really moody and kind of detached and withdrawn, and living in nostalgia and all that sort of stuff. That can be like an aspect of lunar work. The reason I said, and when I said start doing the entire supreme invoking ritual, the pentagram, instead of just the earth invoking pentagram, this is the same thing you do in magic. I mean, in planetary magic. But instead of doing the supreme invoking ritual, the pentagram, the entire thing, if you start to feel some sort of imbalance, or whatever you want to call it, that needs to be kind of leveled out or corrected, or however you want to see it, you would start doing the greater invoking hexagram of the sun, or the greater invoking hexagram of soul. Because when you do that one, you're invoking all 7 planets simultaneously: Sun, Moon, Mars, Venus, Mercury, all of those. So once again, what happens is you're doing it in a balanced way. You're taking all 7 of them in so they even each other out. The thing is, each of these rituals are working on a different aspect of ourselves. It's kind of like when you go to the gym. I've said this before, but it's like the difference between focusing on compound exercises and isolation exercises. Like a compound exercise is like something that's really big and that you're usually picking up a lot of weight, and that's working multiple muscles simultaneously. Like for example, if you're bench pressing, you're working not only your arms and your chest, but also to some extent your abdomen, your shoulders. Like you're working a lot of muscles whenever you bench press. Or when you do deadlifts, you're working pretty much the entire lower half of your body as well as the small of your back. Those are compound movements. That would be the equivalent of doing like the supreme invoking ritual, the pentagram, or the greater invoking ritual, the hexagram. Whereas the isolation exercises would be the equivalent of doing something like curls, where you're just holding the weight and doing this, because the only thing you're working is your biceps. You're focused on a very small part of your anatomy, and changing it in some way. That's the same thing you're doing when you zero in with like one of these elemental exercises, like when you're just invoking earth over and over and over. It's like you've zeroed in on a part of your own psyche and a part of your own energy system, and you're working it the way you would if you were doing an isolation exercise like curls. Whether it's planetary, elemental, whatever it is, that's kind of what you're doing. And I forgot where the hell I was going with that, but I hope that was helpful in some sort of way. Does that make sense? One second. There was another question I wanted to answer, and I can't remember what it was. Let me see. I'm skimming back through the comments. Oh, Sunshine says, for writing Hebrew, do you typically use a brush, pen, or marker? Honestly, I don't use any of those. I don't use Hebrew at all anymore. Keep in mind, all of these different things you're learning in the Golden Dawn system are systems unto themselves. Like Enochian, like you're getting little bits of Enochian. Enochian is an entire system of magic unto itself. Or when you're working with Kabbalah, that is an entire system of magic unto itself. Or when you're working with the pentagrams and hexagram rituals, that's astrotheurgy. That is an entire system of magic unto itself that you're just getting a little bit of through the Golden Dawn. Hebrew was like using the same way. The reason I bring that up is because that's the same thing that the Hebrew letters are. Using the Hebrew alphabet, that's an entire system of magic unto itself. And it doesn't really appeal to me, to be honest. Any more than like Enochian appealed to me. Like I never enjoyed doing Enochian magic. Anything beyond the supreme pentagram rituals, I really didn't use that much of. If I were to draw Hebrew letters, the few times, the little bits that I did use them, like say, for example, when you're doing the analysis of the keyword, how when you're doing that, you're inhaling, filling the earth with light, and drawing Yod, Nun, you're writing Hebrew in the air in front of you in light. That's the only way that I ever really used it. You can use it for a million things. You can charge things with it, or, all sorts of stuff. But it wasn't anything that ever like made me catch on fire or made me hungry for this is a lot of like, I feel like I'm being like really kind of detail oriented here. And I think sometimes that stuff, I always feel like it can be kind of boring, when we're going into the minutia of rituals, things like that. I hope it's not boring the hell out of y'all. Excellent. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Um, so for me, the next thing that I started doing after doing the daily rituals would have been the planetary work, doing the hexagram stuff. And I exhausted that, doing that every day. Um, but somebody else asked, I remember what it was. Somebody asked a question. I think it was Holly, said something about like she messed up during a ritual and she didn't know, like, if you mess up, like she realized at one point she was walking counterclockwise instead of clockwise. um, and she was trying to figure out, like, did she need to start all over, or just let it go and keep going, or just do it right the next time, or whatever it is. Sorry, my throat is still bothering me. Been having trouble for the past week or so with it. Um, the thing about these rituals, also, one thing that I wanted to point out is that just like whenever you're doing, you're learning all of these different systems, when you're moving through the Golden Dawn curriculum, you're learning all of these different systems that hopefully one of them is going to appeal to you and make you like want to explore it in depth. Like for me, it was astrotheurgy. For some people, it's Enochian. For other people, it's Kabbalah. Some people just focus on tarot their whole lives and never move beyond that. Different people like different things. But each one of these is like a little piece of something. The thing about all these rituals you're learning, when you're learning the daily rituals, one of the things that most people will never figure out is that you can use one piece of some of these rituals as an entire system of magic unto itself. Like just the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram. You're learning a bunch of different things that you could take just one piece of these rituals, one piece of this ritual, and use as an entire system. Like what I mean by that is, I'll give you two examples. The first is just the pentagrams themselves. You could take like the pentagrams you're drawing in all four directions and charging them with the God names. You could charge anything with that. You could, for example, if you want to do a protection ritual on your house, you could go around to all the windows and the doors in your house, and you would just inhale and fill the earth with light, and you would draw that flaming blue pentagram over the window, inhale and fill the earth with light, and charge that pentagram with Adonai, which is the divine name associated with the element of fire, and fire is corresponds with protection. And you could just draw that pentagram on all of your windows and all of your doors and charge them with the intention of it being a protective sigil, essentially. Or you could, every time you're getting ready to eat, if you're trying to, you want to add energy to nourish your physical body, you would draw the earth invoking pentagram over your food and charge it with the divine name Agela. Like you could use just the pentagrams for anything. Take one little thing, you could bless people like that. Like if someone needs healing energy, depending on what kind of healing it is, maybe it's emotional, maybe it's physical, and you can do the same thing with the names associated with the tree on the Sephiroth. Like for example, if you want to do protection using tree of life energies instead of elemental, you would charge the pentagrams. You can use the pentagrams. You can charge the pentagrams with the names from the tree of life. So if you're wanting to do one for protection, you would do it and charge it with the divine name Elohim Gabor, which is the divine name associated with Geborah. Or, you could do, for example, you could charge your wallet every day for prosperity and financial abundance by drawing and invoking pentagram on your wallet every day and charging it with L, the divine name associated with Hesed. You know, or let's say you're getting ready to take a bath. You could bless the bath water with for example, if you're getting ready to do ritual work and you're going to take a ritual bath first, you run the tub full of water, you draw a pentagram like it's standing on the water in the tub, and charge it with whatever divine name would be, most suitable to whatever ritual you're getting ready to do. Let's say, for example, you're getting ready to invoke Tippereth for healing or for balance or for success, whatever it is. You could draw a tub of water, draw an invoking pentagram standing on top of the water in the tub. Don't draw the pentagram like it's laying down, draw it like it's standing up with the bottom point standing on the water, and charge it with the divine name Yehovah Eloah Da'ath, so that you're infusing the bath water with the energy of Tippereth and saturating yourself in it before you ever even get up to start doing the ritual. So you see what I mean about how the pentagrams themselves can be an entire system of magic, just themselves, nothing else. Same with the angels, working with the angels. So, and Viticus just asked something really good too. I'm going to go back to that in just a second. I don't want to lose my train of thought on this, but that's a really good question, something I wanted to point out. Same way with the angels. You know how whenever you're doing the lesser banishing or the lesser invoking of the pentagram, and you've got all the pentagrams drawn around you, and then you inhale and you see Raphael expand before you, or you see a pillar of yellow light expand before you that symbolizes Raphael. It's that divine angelic energy. And then you vibrate Raphael. And when you do that, you see the angel vibrate and you see it grow even more vibrant. You can do that with any angel. You don't have to do a giant ritual. All you have to do, and I've done this a million times in my life. I can't even tell you how many times I've done this. This is probably the form of magic that I've done the most, just because it's quick, it's easy, it's fast. All you have to do, this is why you got to know your correspondences though. You figure out what is your need at this particular moment. Say for example, I'll give you one example where I did this a lot when I was learning how to drive. This was just like a couple of years ago. I was getting in a car for the very first time, and I started even before I got my license, like within like a month, less than that, like I got my learner's permit, and within a week I was driving all the way from Alabama to the Grand Canyon and back. And I had no idea what I was doing. And to be honest, in the beginning, it was kind of horrifying, kind of terrifying doing it. So what I would do is figure out, talking about correspondences, what do I need to do here? First off, I want protection. Something that's going to make sure I'm okay while I'm doing this. Something that's going to make sure I don't make any mistakes, get in any wrecks, cause other people to get in any wrecks, any of that kind of stuff. So it's protection, but it's protection for me. What I associate it with is travel. Well, on the tree of life, which is mostly the magic that I usually do not use after those initial phases in the beginning, unless I'm adding it to something else. Like if I'm doing an elemental invocation and a planetary invocation, and usually a zodiacal invocation on top of that, I usually don't exactly Gannicus, Mercury or Hod, because Hod is travel. Normally what I use, if I'm doing something quick and fast, I'll focus on the tree of life energies, or planetary energies. They're pretty much the same thing, to be honest. So what I would do is I would say, okay, what's the archangel of Hod? The archangel of Hod is Michael. Gannicus said Raphael. Here's where things get tricky for some people, and none of this matters ultimately. This is where a question Viticus asked in a minute I'm going to go back to. Viticus says Raphael. The thing is, Raphael is the archangel of the planet Mercury. But Michael is the archangel of the sphere of Hod. Raphael is the archangel of the sphere of Tippereth. But Michael is the archangel of the sun. You see how there's a little overlap there? But what I would usually do is I would say, okay, I'm traveling. I want protection while I'm traveling. So the archangel associated with that, if I'm using the tree of life, would be Michael. Or if I want to use Mercury, Raphael, whichever, doesn't matter. And the angelic choir that's associated with that sphere is the Beni Elohim, Benielohim. So what I would do is sit in the Jeep for a minute, and I would inhale and see Michael or Raphael, whichever you want to use, expand in front of the Jeep, just a towering pillar of orange light. And then I would start invoking the Beni Elohim. I would inhale and see one of the Beni Elohim, a pillar of orange light, expand behind the Jeep. And then I would inhale and I would do it again and see one expand on the right-hand side of the Jeep. And then inhale again and see one expand on the left-hand side of the Jeep. Inhale again and see one over the top of the Jeep. Inhale again and see one expand below me, so that I am traveling in a moving sphere of these archangels associated with Hod or Mercury that go wherever I go and protect me. This is what I mean about these rituals. Any little part of them, you can take them apart and use any of it as an entire system unto itself. You can work like that. One of the ways that I learned that I got so much, something I got so much knowledge from, so much information from, in regards to doing angel magic and doing it like that. And that's really all you need to do. It's as simple as that. You don't have to do all this crazy stuff that people do, doing all these big, long, lengthy invocations and all the stuff people do. You don't have to do any of that. All you have to do, inhale, see them expand before you, and do it multiple times. Like when you see it expand before you, inhale again and see it glow even brighter. Inhale again and see it grow even denser. Do it multiple times. Vibrate the divine name multiple times. And then tell it what you want it to do. Say, Raphael, archangel of the planet Mercury, I ask that you travel with me and keep me safe so that I arrive at my destination happy and unharmed. May it come about in a way that brings harm to none and is for the good of all. And in no way let this request reverse or bring upon me any curse. I ask this in the divine name, and then I would vibrate the divine name of whatever sphere or whatever planet I'm trying to invoke and see the archangels and the angels vibrating. You can do that anytime and anywhere. You don't have to do any of these rituals. Is it going to be more powerful if you do the ritual? Yeah. Just like with anything else in magic, you're going to get as much out of this as you put into this. So if you do more of the big rituals, yeah, you're going to get more power in it. But all you have to do is this. Either use the pentagrams, use the angels. And this is what the book I would recommend. What I got the most use out of. Here's what really, you have to step outside the boundaries and the domains of traditional ceremonial magic to learn a lot of this stuff. Because to be honest, most of the people that are like hardcore staunch magicians, they don't know any of this stuff. They don't know you can do that. They don't know you can just invoke an angel that way and be just as successful as doing an hour-long invocation. They don't know. Where I learned it from was a woman that, I say this with all due respect, not to denigrate her in any way, but there was a woman who was really, really good at angel magic. I mean, that was her thing. She made a living off of it. She wrote a ton of books on the subject that were all very instrumental in me being able to do this work, do what I did, figure a lot of this stuff out. But later she went crazy. She denounced everything. And, she wrote probably a good dozen books on various aspects of angel magic. She made tons of like oracle decks, like tarot decks, that all were to deal with angels in some way. When she went crazy, she started having them all pulled from the shelves and said she was, from that point on in her life, she was only going to work with Jesus. She became essentially a hardcore, born again, fundamentalist Christian. I don't know what the hell happened to her. No clue. I can't even speculate on that. Yes, Gannicus. Yep, Nicole. Doreen Virtue is her name. No, not Ravenwolf. Doreen Virtue. Yeah. I mean, her stuff for learning how to do this kind of angel magic, I wouldn't know 1/5 of what I know now if not for her early work. That's one of the things in magic. You're not going to find many people in the realm of ceremonial magic who have studied Doreen Virtue. Most people wouldn't touch her with a 10-foot pole. Her work, they view it as flaky, new agey. One of those people that works with mermaids or what have you. But it works. If you can get your hands on some of her books. I remember she did one called Angel Medicine, I think it is. Angel Medicine. And I can't remember the other ones. One that was really good was she wrote like an autobiography that was really, really good, where she talked about this sort of stuff. But my point in bringing all this stuff up is, if you make a little mistake at some point in the ritual, you've still done the rest of it right. So you're still going to get some effect out of it. Maybe it won't be as great as it would be if you nailed every single thing down perfectly. Maybe that would be more effective, but it's still, you've still gotten more. If you forget and walk the wrong way, circumambulating, and you've still done everything else right, you've still got a ton of power there around you. None of that's going away. You still invoke those angels. You've still drawn those pentagrams. There's still power in that. And you can use those angels the same way you would use those pentagrams. If you're getting ready to sit down and eat and you want it to, be sustenance for your physical body, you inhale and you see Uriel expand right next to you at the kitchen table, or just see a towering pillar of green light, vibrate the divine name Uriel. Do it several times, and then just tell it what you want. Say, please let your power, blessings, and favor descend upon this food, so that it may strengthen and sustain me, so that I may complete the great work within this lifetime. I ask this in the divine name, Adonai Haaretz. Amen. That's all you have to do. Same way of using the bath water example again. You inhale and invoke the angel standing on the tub of water. The angel is standing on top of the water, or the pillar of light is extends standing on top of the water. Do it for, like, if you're invoking Tippereth, invoke Raphael. If you're invoking Kether, invoke Metatron. Whatever it is, you do it standing there on top of that. Like, you can use any little part of these rituals. You take them apart and use any tiny little thing. Exactly. Ganica says, I think directed intention is the most important part. I would agree with that 100%. 100%. If you mess something up, that's not what's most important. Yep. Yep. Exactly. I would agree with that. So y'all want to talk a little bit about the psychic vampires? So if you're in the magnum opus groups, and a lot of you are, y'all know I've been talking this month about, we still have one group that hasn't met with, so y'all haven't heard it yet. But one, let me see if they list the title of the book in here. One of the things I've been bringing up and talking about, where is it? So this book, the one we've been using in the Psychic Vampire series, and I said this will probably be the last live stream where we talk about vampirism, unless you guys just want to do this some more. But we've kind of went into this extensively, talking about, like vampires in ancient Egypt and where they originated from, and, reading from Monsters by John Michael Greer. Viticus says, is there a place to get all the angel info? You were going to answer, there's a million places. It's not just one place. Number one, and a lot of this information will seem kind of contradictory at first. The reason it seems contradictory may be because they're using different systems. Like in some systems, they'll say this angel is the archangel of this, but then you can find something that contradicts it, saying, well, this archangel is actually the archangel of this. The thing about that stuff is, this is what I've found from my own personal experience. Your mileage may vary. It doesn't matter what angel you invoke. The only difference in the angels that you invoke will be the way that something manifests. Like every energy has kind of its own flavor to it. So you could invoke, technically, let's say, for example, you want protection, just to use that as an example, you're trying to invoke an angel for protection. Well, normally you would think, okay, well, I'll go with Michael, the archangel of fire, or I'll go with Kamael, the archangel of Geborah. Or Samael, the archangel of Mars, whatever, just, we think of forceful things like that. But you can also think, what kind of protection am I wanting? Am I wanting physical protection for my physical body, to make sure that nothing bad happens to me physically? Well, the archangel of the physical world would be, you could use Uriel if you're wanting your body protected or your money protected, or you could use Sandalphon, because Sandalphon is the archangel of Malkuth. The only difference is going to be how it manifests. You can invoke for protection. You could invoke, what's her name? Zafkiel of Banah, which is all about binding and banishing harm. Or you could invoke Kamael, the archangel of Geborah, for more wrath-like, destructive, warlike energy. They're both going to manifest the protection in completely different ways, or usually will. But you're still going to get what you ask for. You could even invoke something that seemingly has no connection whatsoever. You could invoke Raphael the archangel or Michael, the archangel of Hod for protection. Hod is very mercurial energy. So it's all stuff to do with the intellect and the mind and all that kind of stuff. Maybe it gives you an idea that you're going to go do something different that day that you don't normally do. Like you're going to take a different route home just for the hell of it. It just occurs to you. I'm bored walking the same route home every day, so I'm going to go a new way. Just because I think I'm going to see things that are more intellectually stimulating, whatever it is. By going that way, you may have avoided something. Maybe there was somebody laying in wait on the way that you normally walk home that was going to rob you that day or rob the next person that walked by. And that would have been you if you would have followed your normal routine, but you're not following your routine because you just suddenly had this idea that I want to do something different today. And you'll never know that you were protected, that you were saved. So it's all of it's just different. Like when it really comes down to it, there is no wrong angel to invoke. They're all going to do what you ask them to do. They're just going to do it in different ways, depending on what kind of energy they correspond with. The correspondences for these angels, like I said, they're in a million different places. One is Silver Raven Wolf's Angels, Companions in Magic. The thing about her stuff is it's not always necessarily going to correspond entirely with Golden Dawn stuff. You know, like when you're talking about archangels of the zodiac, she may say, you know, have archangels of the zodiac that are different than the Golden Dawn correspondences. Another one would be Donald Michael Craig's Modern Magic. In that one, he gives you like all of the archangels and all of the angelic choirs associated with every sphere on the tree. Those are the Golden Dawn correspondences. You could also Learning Ritual Magic by John Michael Greer. You know, that one, another one I keep beating people over the head with. I was in a store today, as a matter of fact. I was going to get something for next month's Magnum Opus group, something that I was thinking about that I like a short, quick, easy thing, like a kind of divination you could do using stones. And I went to a store today to get those, and I just so happened to see a book sitting there on the shelf called, it was either Angels of the Zodiac or Archangels of the Zodiac. I can't remember. It's a really good book for like uses of invoking these kinds of forces. You know, most people can pretty easily grasp elemental stuff, and they can pretty easily grasp planetary stuff like correspondences. But when you start getting into things that's a little more abstract, like zodiacal forces, you know, most people, you know, when you think of, okay, what would I invoke Sagittarius for? You know, that's not a thing that is going to be right on the edge of most people's brains unless they've really delved into this stuff. You could ask them, you know, what planet would you invoke for this, that, or what have you, and they can usually get that. Or what element would you invoke for this or that, and they can usually get that. But the zodiacal stuff is a little more, it's just not as well known. However, I'm trying to think of the best book for that. You know, you're going to have to, here's the thing I've been saying lately is you're going to have to study a lot. It's not like there's one book that you're going to be able to buy and that you're going to get all this information from. You know, I'm doing the best I can to distill down about 30 years worth of book reading and practice and study and everything else as I can and give it to you so that you don't have to go through a lot of this stuff, but there's still a lot you're going to have to learn for yourself, a lot. So what I would say, you're going to want Silver Raven Wolf's Angels, Companions in Magic. You're going to want all of Doreen Virtue's books, maybe not the little simple ones like what's she calling, like angel numbers or something like that. I didn't get anything out of those at all. Like you look up yeah, John says, that's the thing, I always forget my books. John says Damien's Angels and Archangels has a lot of this information. I always forget about my own books, but yep, that's another one. Another one is, if you look on Amazon, the Gallery of Magic people like Damon Brand and all of those people that are associated with the Gallery of Magic, they have done a ton of books on angels. And I would recommend all of those, as well as Travis McHenry's Angel Tarot. I would highly recommend getting that. Yes, Ganica says correspondences need to be learned. I'm just saying that it's important. Exactly. Exactly. So Sunshine says there's zodiacal studies even in the Encyclopedia of Natural Magic correspondences. So there you go. That's another one I've been kind of hammering y'all over the head with. Oh, but the other thing, before we run out of time, in Psychic Vampires, this guy, Joe Slate, the reason I love his work so much is because this is not some kind of hippy dippy, I'm a witch, I'm a magician type of guy. This is like a professor at a school in Alabama. No, affiliations with any kind of woo woo business. But he's written a ton of books that I have gotten so much use from. It's crazy. Not just Psychic Vampires, but the other one and all the other groups I was telling you about was Aura Energy for Health, Healing, and Balance. That was one that had a big impact on me that I got a use out of, as well as this one. And Psychic Empowerment for Health and Fitness. That was another one. Just reading what y'all are talking about. Yeah, Sunshine says when to go fishing and plant seeds in the Encyclopedia of Natural Magic. So I'm going to read to y'all a section tonight from this book before my throat gives out. This one is called, he did two sections, one called the internal energy system and one called the outer cosmic energy system. And I'll tell you why I chose this part and why I think it's so important and how this ties into psychic vampirism and all that in just a couple minutes. Let me read to you. A strong internal energy system has two important functions related to psychic vampirism. First, it ensures an abundant supply of essential energy within the self, thus eliminating any need for psychic vampire tactics in meeting our personal energy needs. And second, it repels any external threat of a psychic vampire attack on our energy system. So, first, he's talking about a strong internal energy system. He says it has two important functions. One is it ensures an abundant supply of essential energy within the self. That's a fancy way of saying he's talking about a technique which provides you with spiritual sustenance. Spiritual sustenance is what makes your energy system stronger. Just like when you eat food, it makes your physical body stronger if you're eating the right things, in the right amounts. It makes your physical body stronger. Just like your body needs sustenance, so does. Wow, I did not know that, Max. Max says Joe Slate died this January at the age of 93. I did not know that. That's a shame, but it's kind of amazing also that he lived to be 93. That tells you right there, though, he knew what the hell he was talking about. Like I said, I've gotten a lot of use out of his stuff. So he's talking about, number one, spiritual sustenance. Number two, he's talking about repels any external threat of vampire attacks. The way it does that is through shielding, making you kind of impenetrable to attacks. Well, when he's talking about a strong internal energy system, this is what you're giving yourself when you do the middle pillar. This is why the middle pillar is so important. The middle pillar is what creates a strong internal energy system within you. Now, there are other ways of doing it, like you can use qigong. There's you can use Taoism. There's a lot of different ways of doing it, but in magic, the way that we create a strong internal energy system is by doing the middle pillar. When you do the middle pillar and you're circulating the body of light, when you pull all of that energy in and you start circulating the light around you, you're creating a shield around yourself that makes it much harder for vampiric, psychic vampiric energies to latch onto you and take advantage of you. It's also providing your energy system with sustenance. You are feeding it. If you do it consistently, you're going to notice a difference in the way you feel. The self's internal energy system, like other aspects of our being, consists of three essential interactive components: mental, physical, and spiritual. Although the mental and physical aspects of our makeup have long been accepted by conventional thinking as critical to our personal well-being, only recently has mainstream science begun to recognize the spiritual component and its importance in daily life. Reflecting this trend is the American Psychological Association's recent listing of recommended readings for psychologists, which include, for the first time, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to skip over that. Not important. Joining psychology and demonstrating a greater awareness and appreciation of the spiritual nature of our makeup is modern medicine. The healing value of faith, prayer, and meditation is now recognized in many medical settings. In my clinical practice, I routinely use spiritual strategies because of their singular therapeutic benefits. In future medicine, promoting healing, balance, and well-being through spiritual channels will undoubtedly increase. As we will later see, a major characteristic found among psychic vampires is the absence of inner balance and well-being. By the same token, a state of inner balance and well-being is one of our best defenses against psychic vampirism. And keep in mind also, when we're talking about psychic vampirism here, we're not necessarily talking about people. We're not talking just about, if you do a search for, like, if you go on YouTube and do a search for like psychic vampires, you're going to draw up some pretty cheesy stuff. You're going to draw up people who are, there are a few people in that world that I've come across even that do understand magic and that can do magic. But honestly, probably 99 out of 100 of them, at least, maybe more, maybe like 99.5 out of 100 of them, are just engaging and indulging in cosplay. They're just dressing up like what they think vampires look like, probably walking around wearing a lot of black or a lot of lace, or, calling themselves Lestat, or wearing contacts and fangs and all that kind of stuff. That's not what we're talking about. First off, those people, it's like I always say, most of them probably couldn't magic their way out of a wet paper bag. Second thing, we're not even necessarily just talking about the people who refer to themselves as psychic vampires who can do magic. We're not even talking about those people. I'll get to kind of more of what we're talking about in just a minute. So, and there are those things that exist. Very rare, very few and far between. Most psychic vampirism comes to us from other sources, and I'll get to that in just a second. Every aspect of our being is energized and sustained by the constant flow of life force energy. When we are enriched with life force energy, our mental, physical, and spiritual functions flourish. But when we are deficient in essential life force energy, they falter. Psychic vampirism, in whatever its form, taps into our energy resources and consumes vital life force energy. In the worst scenario, the internal energy system can malfunction and critical coping resources can become virtually exhausted. Eventually, the growth process can become totally arrested, particularly in instances of severe and repeated vampire attacks. It becomes plausible then that mastery of effective vampire protection strategies is indeed critical to our total growth and evolvement as human beings. So, one thing he's talking about here, let me see, should I keep going? Yeah, I'm going to go a little more, just a little more. Bear with me. The flow of life force energy within the self has a definite direction. By exercising its energizing powers, the internal energy system not only maintains itself, it opens new growth channels and generates new growth energy. Failing to exercise its energizing potentials, or even worse, expressing itself negatively through self destructive channels, leads to energy loss, growth blockage, and in the long term, damage to the entire system. It would follow that an empowered energy and internal energy system is not only critical to our personal growth, it is our first line of defense against psychic vampirism. So one of the things he's talking about here is how if you don't have a strong internal energy system, Nicole says they sparkle, vampires sparkle. If you don't have a strong internal energy system, if you're not regularly receiving spiritual sustenance, you're not going to grow. Those are the people, and what I mean by grow, everybody has come across people at some point that just hit their peak in high school. They spent the rest of their life looking back, reminiscing about proms and graduations and all of that kind of crap. They stopped growing. They got older. Maybe they got a new job. Usually they even do the same job for years and years and years and years in the same way without ever changing anything up. They cease growing. One of the things that contributes, you have to do this stuff deliberately, like doing the middle pillar and circulating that body of light. If you do that, your life isn't going to stagnate. If you just do that, if you do that one ritual, doing the middle pillar, I'm sorry, my brain's a little foggy. If you do that, it may not happen fast and it may not happen all at one time, but you're going to find yourself making steps in life that cause you to constantly, maybe by just tiny bits, but constantly change and grow. One thing you'll also find, most people who stagnate, who don't change and grow, not only do they not have a strong internal energy system because they know of no way to providing themselves spiritual sustenance, but they also they also usually have no kind of spiritual connection at all, no belief. Like either they pay no attention to spirituality whatsoever. They think people who believe in God or energy or any of this kind of stuff are just superstitious flakes. They may even look at you as harmful, like, oh, you're against science. You're a throwback to a time when people were much more ignorant. Like, we don't need that stuff today. Today we have science. And I'm not saying we don't need science. I'm not saying when you're sick, don't go to a doctor. In addition to doing this stuff, of course you want to do those things. But those things are also not a substitute for having a relationship with divinity. Whatever it is, science, social justice work, all the things that people try to use to replace or fill that hole in themselves or in their lives, where having a true cultivated connection to divinity that fills that hole in you. If they don't have that, they're constantly looking for things in this world to fill that hole with. And usually those people are going to stagnate. It may not necessarily look like they're stagnating on the outside, even in the beginning. I was trying to think of an example. Just reading what y'all were talking about. I was trying to think of an example. A tremendous example of psychic vampirism is celebrity. People in this world think that being famous in some way is going to fill a hole in you, that it's going to provide your life with meaning. That's the thing. If you do not have a relationship with divinity of some kind, your life usually is going to have no meaning. Your life is going to be, it's going to feel like a dead end. You're going to, why am I getting up and working this same job every day, and going to the same grocery store every day, and coming home and watching this same show on TV every day, going out on the weekend and drinking a beer at this exact same bar every day. There's no meaning to your life. You feel like something is lacking. It's like there's no plot to anything. It's your relationship with divinity that gives your life meaning. People think celebrity is somehow going to provide that meaning. They think if I could just get famous, that it's going to fill this hole in me in some way. Most of the people, keep in mind, I've come in contact with a lot of people in the entertainment world and in the celebrity world and all that kind of stuff. Most of them are the unhappiest people on the face of the earth. That world is an illusion. And not only that, but what it does when you're in that world is psychic vampires flock to you. Yes, Gannicus says, because they're empty. That's exactly what it is. But also, psychic vampires, people who don't know that they're psychic vampires, flock to you because they want to feed on that celebrity. It's like they think if they can get close to someone who's famous, then somehow that celebrity light is going to rub off on them a little bit. And it doesn't, because it's an illusion. There's no light there. It's an illusion. There's an entire industry built around trying to make people in the world think that celebrity status is what you're supposed to be striving for. Another thing about most of those people is, we think they're incredibly wealthy, but they're really not. Most people in that world are, living in debt, running up credit card. Just it's crazy. But yes, Gannicus, he says they see the flame and are attracted. That's exactly what it is. And a lot of people in that world also think, I don't know, I could go on and on about this stuff. How when we think of psychic vampires, we think of something, but it doesn't necessarily actually look like that. It can look like something entirely different, like going into the world of celebrity or even corporations, businesses. This is one of the reasons I don't like wearing clothing. This was something I kind of got a message about loud and clear at one point several years ago, is I don't like wearing clothing that advertise things, like brands, or, I don't walk around with, shirts that say Nike on them, or any kind of identifiable stuff like that, because those things are also a kind of vampire. And I didn't read nearly as much out of here. I have other things marked that I was wanting to read to you that I didn't get to. If y'all want to, I guess we could potentially do one more psychic vampire. Yes, Viticus says, aren't those Aggregores? Exactly. That's exactly what they are. What do you mean? A deus angel says, would you mind delving into your lifestyle? Like, in what way? What do you mean? Like, what is it that you're curious about? But what I was going to say is, I said, like, this could be our last section on psychic vampires. We can go on to something else if y'all feel like we've kind of wore this out, or if you're getting bored with it or whatever, we can go on, into other subjects, because we've done several on this now, like 4 or 5. But if y'all want to do one more, we can do one more to it too. Sleeping cycles, diet routine, etc. So I'm usually in bed. I go to bed at 9 o'clock every night. I'm usually asleep from between 9:30 and 10. I sleep more than I used to now as I'm aging. I usually get up about 7 in the morning. My point in saying that is I'm not a party person. I don't go out late. I don't socialize. I don't like go out to dinners with people. I don't go to concerts. I don't do any of those things that people usually search for some sort of fulfillment in. To me, those things are just, they drain my resources, they drain my energy away from things I could be doing that would actually be productive in some sort of way. I could, and the reason I sleep so much, also keep in mind, I box twice a week. I go to boxing twice a week, every week. I also do martial arts classes. I go to karate twice a week. So I'm boxing twice a week, going to karate twice a week. So I'm doing a lot of physical exercise, but it's things I love doing. And it's things that I see an improvement. I can see that I get better from month to month doing these things. Exactly. Ganica says working your butt off. That's exactly what I do. So usually I'm tired at night. Absolutely tired. So I do a lot of physical activity. And so that also, leads to things like I have to eat healthy. I don't like pretty much everything I eat. I don't eat garbage at all. If it comes out of a box, I don't eat it. The only thing I'll really eat out of a can is every now and then beans. Like if I'm eating beans and rice or something like that, I might take beans out of a can. But for the most part, I don't eat processed stuff at all. I don't eat boxes, cans. I can't eat any kind of anything with wheat in it. I pretty much live on a diet of, I get the highest quality meat that I can, like no garbage meat. I don't eat like bologna or salami or any of that sort of stuff. It's going to have to be like steak or chicken breast or something in that vein. Vegetables, fruit. If I want some sort of treat every now and then, it's usually going to be something that most people wouldn't consider a treat. Like I eat protein bars or Quest. Quest is a protein company that makes like these they're like Reese's peanut butter cups, but they don't have any sugar in them, and they're just made out of the same stuff they make protein bars out of, and I honestly think they taste better than real candy. I went, I couldn't imagine at one point in my life ever going a day without eating candy bars. I haven't always been the way I am now. I used to eat sometimes 3 Snickers bars a day back when I was younger, when I was in prison, didn't have any choice. Um, Now, once I stopped eating stuff like that, if I do eat it, if I try to eat it, I don't enjoy it at all. Like if I were to eat candy now, it's like it's too much, it's gross, it's too sweet. I just don't enjoy that stuff. Once you get your body adjusted to like living the way people used to live, before they started pumping us full of processed foods and yeah, Gannica says you feel sick after. Yeah, yeah. Um, I'm not sure what else you want to know. I like I said, I don't go out. I don't do a lot of socializing. Period. I just don't have the time for it. If I've got time to be uh, out having dinner with somebody or sitting at a bar with somebody, I look at it as that's time that I could be practicing boxing or practicing martial arts or on here talking to y'all or reading a book or, doing a million other things. I just don't. And that's another thing too. It's not just me. Here's something that'll sound kind of strange, and I'll shut up after this. Once people reach a certain point on this path, you're not really, for the most part, going to just like run into those people on the street anymore. It may happen occasionally every now and then, but for the most part, the people who reach a certain stage on this path are going to um, create their own world and live within it. They are going to create their own little kingdom that they operate in, move through, and rule over. And if you do come in contact with people like that, and in a lot of ways, I myself fall into this category. If you run into people like that, if you come in contact with people like that, it's usually going to be in a very almost ritualistic type way. And what I mean by that, it could look like anything. For example, most people that come in contact with me, for the most part, if someone, it's going to be at a retreat that I'm doing, where they're going to be coming to the retreat to learn, or it's going to be at a book signing that I'm doing, and they're coming to hear me speak or whatever, and then they come up to get their book signed, and they may have a conversation like that. But it's like I don't do what people call hang out. People say let's hang out. I don't hang out. I don't understand how people have the time for it or the energy for it, because I'm pouring everything I have into my world, into creating my world, and into doing the things that I love doing, whether it's boxing and martial arts or talking to y'all or, growing my herbs and plants outside, tending to that garden, tending to this garden, whatever it is. It's like I'm putting my all into my world. Does that make sense? You know, I'm I'm not opposed to ever talking about any of this kind of stuff, like, giving y'all insights into um Vitica says, what do you think of number synchronicities? Honestly, nothing. It's not anything that I've ever paid any attention to whatsoever. I realize that's a big thing, like especially in the past few years. I even have a friend that has 1111 tattooed on his knuckles because when he was a kid, his mom told him like whenever you see 1111 anywhere, it means like an angel is near, or you can make a wish at 1111 or whatever it is. Like I realize that's a big thing, but It's never been anything really for me. Exactly, Mary. Mary says, living a life that belongs to you. That's exactly it. You create your own world and you dwell within it. Exactly. Yep. All right, guys, I'm going to shut up for tonight. If y'all want to, I'll leave it up to y'all. If y'all want to, we can go back into the psychic vampires and do one more thing. Talk about like the external energy system and the internal energy system and all that. If you feel like you're getting anything out of that. However, if you want to, we can go on to a completely new subject. We have a lot of things that we've started to uh, delve into that we haven't even scratched the surface of. Yeah, Max says, I never paid attention to number synchronicities before, but I recently had the thought of noticing if slash when they reflect Tree of Life Sephiroth numbers. Yeah, I mean, some people love that stuff. You know, all the energy synchronicity, I mean, the number synchronicities and all that sort of stuff. Some people love it. It's just not anything I ever really got a great deal out of. Sunshine says, thank you for including us in your monastic life. Thank you all for being part of my monastic life. Thank you all for enabling my monastic life. You know, this is work that I get meaning from. Y'all provide me, you know, by coming to talks that I do, by buying books that I write, by supporting me on Patreon. Y'all are what enables me to do what I love doing, which is talk about this kind of stuff and do this kind of stuff. The life that I experience would not even be possible if y'all weren't here wanting to hear this and supporting me and everything else. So thank y'all for doing this. Thanks, guys. Thanks. Okay, I'm going to shut up for tonight. My throat's hurting. I will be back. Let's see, we have Magnum Opus tomorrow night. I will be back the night after that, and we're going to put one more live. We're going to shove one more live stream as fat before the month gets out. We're going to try to cram one more in um, before the month is over. What is this, May? Think about it, folks. We're getting ready to go into June. This year is half over. That's just mind boggling. June is when the sun hits its peak. From June 20th to 23rd is when the sun is we have the most amount of daylight hours. After June, the days are going to start getting shorter again. We're already up to like the height of the sun. We're about it's crazy. Time does fly, Gannicus. Exactly. All right, guys. I will see some of y'all tomorrow night. I'll see the rest of y'all the night after that. All right. Love y'all. Have a good night, and I'll talk to you soon.